Is Helluva Boss still considered indie animation? I've spoken with many of my friends who also watch the show, and a discussion came up on whether or not Helluva Boss can still be actually considered indie animation moving forward. If you somehow don't know what indie animation is, to put it simply, it's short for independent animation. It's animation that isn't funded by a big studio, rather by the creators themselves, and generates its own revenue to fund the own project. If you like these videos, be sure to subscribe to this channel. We are closing in on 6,000 subscribers, and it would make my week if you got me there. And I do Helluvaverse content every single week, so without further ado, let's begin this discussion that I've been, wanting to talk about for so long. Originally, Helluva Boss came out in 2019 in the form of an indie animation pilot. It was a spin-off of Hazbin Hotel, which was made by the Hazbin creator herself, obviously, VivziePop, or her real name, Vivian Madrano. This pilot was 100% independently funded by merch sales, ad revenue, and any donations VivziePop received to make the pilot happen, which is what is considered indie animation at its core, because it is independently funded and it's not funded and reliant, which is the key word here, on a big studio's funding, like most traditional animation out there. The big disadvantage of this, however, is that the show's creator loses creative control over their work, since it's up to the studio whether to continue the show or not, or since they can easily cut funding and cancel it, since they typically give up the rights to the show when partnering with a big studio. But with indie animation, that worry and burden of studios won't be present, since again, Helluva Boss was independently funded, making its own money to afford its own production. So only VivziePop can actually decide what to do with her own show, since it's her money. She used it to pay the workers to keep the show going. However, on April 25th, 2025, Vivzie uploaded the Helluvaverse update video to her channel, with which future crossover scenarios with Hazbin Hotel were actually teased, which got many people excited like myself. But in the announcements, the big news was Helluva Boss coming to Prime Video, and that Amazon would be providing further funding to make the episodes bigger and better. Not funding it entirely, since she's still making her independently funded revenue, but they're going to be adding more funding to it. And about making it bigger and better, I don't know about better, since the writing is on a bit of a decline. I did a poll earlier this week and you guys were kind of in agreement on that. But that's a video for another time I have in a couple weeks. Some people got concerned about this though, but not to worry, Viv is still keeping her full creative control over the show, for better or for worse. Anyway, the point is, Amazon has no creative input and can't just cancel the show whenever they feel like it, since that decision is still up to Viv herself. But there are some important implications of this. For starters, this might negatively impact viewership of the new Helluva Boss episodes coming out, since Helluva Boss episodes will come out first on Prime Video before fans like myself having to wait an entire month to see when it releases on YouTube for free. Point is, I feel the episodes will gain actually less YouTube views, since people who actually have Prime will just watch it there, since they may not want to wait an entire month to watch it for free, like it's always has been. No, not Hazbin Hotel, I said Hazbin, H-A-S-B-E-E-N. Okay, enough. And might limit the independently funded revenues, since they will get less views and less ad revenue, since again, it may gain less views on YouTube, since again, people will definitely be uploading clips and reviews, like myself, of the episodes for a whole month prior to its YouTube release. But that leads me to this discussion. Can Helluva Boss actually still be considered indie animation? This is an opinion, and whether it deserves this title still can be rather subjective, I find. But for me personally, I'm gonna have to say I don't think it should be considered that anymore. All episodes prior to this announcement, I considered indie animation, 100%. Since this was before Amazon's deal with Spindlehorse. Anything season 2 or like backward. But the upcoming season 3, yeah, no, Amazon definitely helped funded this one. So any upgrades in animation quality we'll see is a result of higher funding. And apparently, I remember watching something at a con that Vivian said, or someone on the team said, that there's going to be an intimate scene that they're able to actually showcase, on Amazon, since they have less like restrictive with that. They're not like YouTube's guidelines. And if that's the case, I'm really worried. I don't think we need that. I know it's an adult cartoon, but I think that's really unnecessary to have an intimate scene like that, but whatever. And it's not going to be entirely independently funded anymore, since Amazon is a huge company that's loaded. So their funding is definitely going to reflect on aspects such as the animation quality. The way Viv previously funded Helluva Boss was through many streams of income. One is the ad revenue that YouTube videos make based on the ads that play before, during, or after a YouTube upload. Another way, and most lucrative way, I think that's the right word, is out of merch sales. Merch is a big portion of Helluva Boss's funding, since ad revenue on its own is not enough to really generate enough income to hold a series, especially this long. And this many episodes, like, no, you need a lot more money than that. And of course, any donations fans do via YouTube donations like super chats or super thanks, etc., or super gifts, I think that's what they're called, as well as the Spindle Horse Patreon, which fans can donate to for special perks. As for Hazbin Hotel, that really hasn't been indie since the pilot. That's almost all Amazon funded now. The old cast isn't even there anymore for the most part. They just have Broadway celebrities now, which are talented, mind you. So as far as I'm concerned, it feels like a new series in of itself, even if the Hazbin Hotel pilot is loosely still canon to Hazbin. Yes, going forward, I would personally not consider Helluva Boss indie animation anymore, since it isn't purely independently funded anymore, and it's having a big company aid in the funding. Not doing all the funding, but it is aiding it, and adding more to it. But it's important to note that I do believe that Viv has plenty of funding from independent streams of income, so even if Amazon all of a sudden wants to pull the plug on them and wants absolutely nothing to do with Viv anymore, who knows, they could just switch on us, we never know, the switch up. Helluva Boss would still continue on YouTube, likely, like it always has. So while it's not indie, that doesn't necessarily mean the show is in danger of being cancelled or any potential for corporate meddling of any kind. Since again, Viv still owns the rights to Helluva Boss and still maintains full creative control over it. But ultimately, I feel people make Helluva Boss not being really indie animation anymore a big deal than it has to be, because it really isn't putting the show at any risk of cancellation or anything. And will just continue as normal with funding added on top of what they're already making on their own. That's been enough to support the series up until now, and I don't think them partnering with Amazon is gonna really impact them too much. And it is a pretty good thing, since it gets Helluva Boss more into the mainstream, since there are many people that use Prime Videos that don't use YouTube that often and will be getting introduced to a brand new show from their perspective. This will grow the community and fan base as a whole because, newsflash, not everyone uses YouTube for entertainment. Most people do, but not everyone. Some people solely use streaming services like Prime. It's a very smart financial move and exposure move, since it's getting more eyes on the show than ever before. And maybe this deal will actually help with Helluva Boss's declining writing quality. But that's unlikely. That's wishful thinking, since nothing's changing in the writing department as far as I'm aware. But maybe this will inspire Viv to, I don't know, write better? I don't know. Or at least write consistently well? Only time will tell at this point. The answer is Helluva Boss is no longer indie animation, in my opinion, since it is now being partially funded by a big company like Amazon. So it cannot really be called independently funded animation, because, well, it isn't that anymore. But that does not mean that it's a bad thing, and is only benefiting the community as well as the fandom as a whole, growing the amount of fans and increasing animation quality while maintaining creative control to the series creator VivZpot. With the one downside being that us on YouTube have to wait a whole month before getting to see a new episode of the show, which we'll just have to get used to from now on. But what do you guys think? Would you still consider Helluva Boss indie animation? Or do you not really care and it doesn't really impact your enjoyment of the show anymore? I mean, it doesn't really impact much. Hit that subscribe button, and again, this is me, Axel, signing off. I'll catch you guys in the next one.